Welcome back to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I've got Stewart McCallion. He is the Managing Director and CEO of Burley Minerals. ASX code is BUR. First time on the program. Now, don't freak out. He's got a Canadian accent, but he's living in Perth and he's got a beard because it's cold over there in Perth, apparently, and there's lots of storms and lots of things happening. Burley Minerals, they're in Canada, but they're also in Western Australia. So I really want to unpack where is potential shareholder value going forward? What are they doing, and what's the news flow for Burley Minerals? Really want to unpack it for you, our beautiful audience out there, so that you can understand where to next. Stewart, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Very impressive beard, by the way. Very impressive.
Yeah, look, it's as I said, winter is coming here in Perth. Finally, we're getting a little bit of rain. It's been terribly dry, so that we're looking forward to getting things a bit green.
Well, it's nice to have a Canadian on the channel. And Burley Minerals, look, as it's just said, first time on this program. So let's just start with who are Burley Minerals, and also, Stewart, if you wouldn't mind including in that why you joined, why you like this project.
Certainly. Look, Burley did an IPO 3 years ago on the Urcoin magnetite project, which is just north of Perth, only about an hour and a half north of Perth. It's a beautiful magnetite project. There's just under 250 million tons of magnetite ore there. The metallurgy is fantastic. It upgrades beautifully to like a 67, 68% Fe iron grade. But the metallurgy is also really interesting about Urcoin because it's a coarse grind and it makes the operation very scalable. Okay. So I was working with the manager or the CEO or chairman Brian Dixon 3 years ago to get this sort of feasibility going on Urcoin. However, getting on the ground at Urcoin proved to be a little bit more troublesome. In the meantime, Burley went out and collected a few more iron ore assets in Western Australia, including Broad Flat Well in the Pilbara near Karratha and Cane Bore, also in the Pilbara, both in the Hammersleigh province. Cane Bore is very close to Onslow or the Port Vasper. So we are working on getting those exploration licenses granted, and we are still working on the Cane Bore exploration license application. However, Broad Flat Well, the license was granted some time ago, and we subsequently are working now, or just released, actually had the Aboriginal Heritage Agreement signed by the Yinjibarni people up out of Karratha and Roburn. Now, in the meantime, we also acquired the Chubb Lithium project in Quebec. We picked that up at the beginning of 2023. And we did a lot of work on that. And we raised money through the Canadian flow-through share scheme. I'm sure that some of your investors may be aware of how that works. It allows you to put a premium on your price in Canada. The Canadian investors kind of get a tax write-off, you sell the shares on, et cetera. However, and so there's money committed to exploration in Canada for Chubb. And we did have some excellent success in Chubb last year. Hit some spodumene-bearing dikes. We hit polysite, which is a very interesting cesium mineral, very rare.
Oh, hang on! You're getting geological on me. What does that mean?
I know. Sorry. Anyway, I get excited about this because I while I am an engineer, I do have geological qualifications as well. So I do tend to get excited about geology sometimes.
Which is good, but I just need you to tell us what that means.
High value. There's a lot of value. There's very interesting pegmatites at Chubb that are highly evolved. They've got a lot of value. They're an evolved, fertile system. We'll continue. We have some money to spend at Chubb, which is part of this flow-through share scheme commitment, and we'll continue to spend a little bit of money there this calendar year. However, the real value-adding opportunity for us right now is in iron ore in Western Australia. And that's at the Broad Flat Well channel iron deposit outside of Karratha, and followed by the Cane Bore channel iron deposit outside of Onslow. So allow me to just start with Broad Flat Well.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Broad Flat Well. As the crow flies, the tenement is about 115 kilometers from Karratha on a sealed road on a highway, which is called the Manawara Red Dog Highway. You got Karratha, you've got Dampier Port right next to Karratha. A little bit to the east of Karratha, you've got Point Sampson. Further to the sort of southwest of Karratha, you've got Cape Preston. Further to the east, you've got Port Hedland. Basically, you've got a whole network of ports. Iron ore, once you've got the grade and the resource in place, iron ore is all about transport economics.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you get it on a boat?
Yeah.
Inexpensively. Can you get it on the boat? Obviously, it's one thing to dig it up. The next thing is how you get it from your pit to the port.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. That is everything about iron ore. And so when you're within, let's say, as the crow flies, the closest port, when you're within, 120 Ks, let's call it, to the port, you're probably the closest to anyone is for a small operation to a port.
Yeah.
So that immediately will put you in the lower quartile of your producers. So Broad Flat Well, our tenement, okay, and our channel iron deposits within that tenement are within 10 kilometers as the crow flies to a sealed road. Now, channel iron deposits, and I'll just go back and talk about channel iron deposits, and the ones that we have actually rock chipped sampled the Broad Flat Well channel iron deposits. We've done a fairly extensive rock chip sampling program over these. We have identified more than 66 hectares of channel iron deposit mesoforms. These mesoforms is a geological term for a hill.
Love it. Thank you.
Geologists call it a mesoform. Engineers call it a hill. It's a hill.
It's a hill. Love it.
It's it. Okay. They're sticking out of the ground. I picked this up on the ground. That's a chunk. That's a piece of iron. I picked this up when I was up on site a few weeks ago. This is basically the channel iron deposits, but it will be difficult to decipher on video, but it's basically just these small iron ore balls that are kind of cemented together.
Okay.
But there's a whole hill of these things. These are channel iron deposits. They're easy to mine and they're relatively consistent in grade. So if we have a 56% Fe grade, that looks a lot like, on the face of it, that looks a lot like Rio Tinto's Robe Valley.
Okay.
Rio Tinto is pumping out roughly a 56. They've been mining Robe Valley for, decades? And that's a specialty product. Their CID has a special offtake agreement with a Chinese or Korean, or not Chinese, a Japanese or Korean mill, because CIDs, they're like little iron balls, piezolites, or detritus, they call them in geology. And basically, they act like they're, sometimes they're as much as a centimeter in diameter, but they act kind of like like an iron ore lump. That is, and you get a premium for a lump. You get a premium for a lump over iron ore fines because fines require an intermediate step before you put them into a blast furnace. You've got to sinter the fines, i.e., when I say sinter, it means you've got to turn the little fines, iron ore fines, which are like little silt or clay-sized iron particles, and make them into a little ball. And you add basically like a flocculant type product to it, and they turn into a little ball. And you need those little balls to go into the blast furnace because it won't work otherwise, because you need the hot air of the blast furnace to kind of envelop or surround the balls. But if you've already have a CID, which is already a little ball, you
what
don't
is a
need
CID? Sorry, what's a
channel iron deposit.
Thank you. Yep.
Sorry, I may have jumped the gun. CID, so channel iron deposits, they're around the Hammersley province, Robe Valley. Rio Tinto's big operation is a channel iron deposit.
Okay.
MinRes, the new operation that MinRes have just started now, and they're just commenced export through Ashburton. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. That is a channel iron deposit as well. So it's these little iron balls, easy to mine, very low strip ratio as well. That's something also too important because they're basically a ridge or a mesophoron, a hill of these iron ore balls, channel iron deposits.
Do you have to
So,
have big scale for the because when you mention Rio Tinto and some of these other,
yeah,
I think, oh, you've got to have this enormous scale to make it work. So do you have scale? I mean, is that
well, Terry, let me remind you and your followers about a little story called Fenix.
oh
John Wellborn
yeah, John Well,
led.
okay. Not
Okay,
Phoenix bird, ladies and gentlemen. Phoenix as
not
in
Phoenix, but
Fenix. Phoenix Resources.
Fenix. Okay, John, Phoenix now, after 3 years, but Phoenix started mining at around 2 million tons a year a few years ago. They were hauling nearly, I think it was about 350 or 400 kilometers to port. They did have some good specialty trucks to reduce their hauling costs. But within 6 months, Phoenix was paying a dividend. And Phoenix went from a market cap of a few million to 200 million.
Okay. And
I,
what's
I,
your market cap's about 23 million at the moment.
yeah. So
Why the comparison with Phoenix is
what I'm saying is I'm looking right now at Broad Flat Well. So I'm going to talk about Broad Flat Well.
yeah.
We have done a rock chip sampling program at Broad Flat Well, which is giving us very, very compelling or very interesting grades. We got average grades about 56% iron, but we also hit highs about 59% iron. That's exceptional for channel iron deposits.
Okay.
We're 120 Ks to the closest port, not 400, 120 Ks to the closest port.
You have my
Okay.
attention. Yep.
And these deposits, as the crow flies, are about 10 Ks to the sealed road.
Okay.
So channel iron deposits, low cost startup. And that's what we're focusing on, a low cost startup. What does a low cost startup mean? There's no processing involved here. I'm not going to crush, screen, beneficiate, any of that. We're going to dig it out of the ground, put it into the back of a truck, send it to the port.
Wow.
Okay, that's it. Direct ship ore, DSO, direct ship ore. No beneficiation, dig it up, sell it. The other thing about the channel iron deposits is there's practically no strip ratio. A lot of times when you're mining a large banded iron formation, a BIF, typical to the big end of town, the Rio, the BHPs, the FMGs, the Roy Hills, they have to remove a lot of waste to get at the iron because there's a thick layer of iron ore that they're going to get into, but above that there's a thick layer of sediments or whatever it may be. They've got to cut the sediments away and dig it up. The channel iron deposits, what we would do is scrape off the surface, which is we're going to call topsoil. We're going to put it into a stockpile adjacent to the mining area, and then we start mining the channel iron deposits. That's it.
Have you got power
No
out
waste. No way. I need a power. You know why? Because I've got a small camp. I'm not running a big. We're not intending to run a big processing operation.
there? Okay.
At 2 million tons a year, that's a relatively small operation, and that's a target for us. Of course, it's a small mining operation. It's a small hauling operation. It gets us onto the road, but it starts making Burley money. So just allow me just to sort of, let's just kind of get some idea of what this could look like. right now, as of yesterday, if I recall, like I'm just looking at the closing iron ore price. So a 58% fines yesterday was selling for 100 US a ton
Okay.
in China. Okay, so that's about 150 Aussie a
Yep.
ton.
Yep.
Okay. So look, if we're looking at a 56, let's say, and this is up for you and your viewers to sort of get make some ballpark numbers around it. A 56, maybe let's just say for argument's sake, let's call it $110 a ton. Let's just call it Aussie a ton.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got a small mining operation, let's say, and you're doing 2 million ton a year.
Mm-hmm.
The cost involved in sort of like the pre-production capital costs in this are going to be minimized. They're the cost of, say, let's call it a haul road. So there's somewhere between, who knows, again, as the crow flies, it may be 10 kilometers, but let's just say you've got to do a bit of meanders and turning and whatever. Let's call it for argument's sake 20 kilometers of haul road. Let's call it that, and make a call on, a thumb suck number on so many hundreds of thousands of dollars per kilometer. But the point being is, it's a haul road. It's a bit of preliminary earthworks. It's a bit of, that is earthworks for setup around the mining area, tops or stockpile area, etc. And it's a relatively small camp, or let's call it a village, because it's a small operation. You're not processing. You're going to have a small maintenance facility because you're only 120 kilometers from Karratha. And if something breaks down on site, you get on the phone. Hey, Bob, send me a truck. Okay, I'll be there in 2 hours.
Yeah, true. Good point. Yeah.
I'll put your truck on the side. I got another one lined up. There's 4 here waiting for you.
So
you don't need a maintenance.
So let me just go, because we don't have a lot of time. What I want to ask you is this: with Broad Flat Well, how quickly can you get it in? If you're saying it's a simple operation, what do you need to do?
It's a simple operation. So what we have a heritage agreement in place with the Yinjibarni people. This is the Yinjibarni country that we're working on. Yinjibarni people are it's a Yinjibarni Aboriginal corporation. They've got their preferred contractor they've got their own construction company as well. They're a preferred contractor for main roads in the area, the preferred contractor for Rio Tinto. They're a well-established group. We're on their country. We've got a heritage agreement in place with them. We're doing a heritage survey in June. That's happening.
Okay.
We've got a approval to drill the program of works that has been approved by DEMERS, the Department of Energy and Mines, etc. Good to go. So, heritage agreement done, or rock chip sampling done. Heritage agreement done. Heritage survey about to happen. Approval to drill done. Next thing, get a maiden resource. Fairly simple. We're going to target getting that maiden resource out in the third quarter calendar year 2024. Follow that up immediately by a scoping study where we will demonstrate the value of this project. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Low cost startup, low operating cost. It's a money-making operation.
Scoping study, when?
Targeting late third quarter of 2024, early fourth quarter.
Okay. Once the scoping study's done?
Then we go back in. We're going to have to do a bit more drilling, I dare say. Sorry, you may hear the rain coming in now.
No, I can't.
Anyway,
I actually can't, but yeah.
Okay, but it's amazing to get rain in Perth. Anyway, the point being is that the scoping study then and that preliminary resource model will tell us where we need to do some infill drilling to improve confidence. And then we could take the scoping study and that preliminary resource model and start to elevate that into obviously a measured and indicated resource and move into pre-feasibility and feasibility studies. And I've done many feasibility studies over the last decade, Kerry. These are very, very simple studies for channel iron deposits. Again, a lot of it is reflecting around the transport economics and understanding port opportunities for us. And so getting the resource model in the right place and the feasibility study will come to fruition relatively quickly.
Okay. So it's all your focus on broad platform, because I want to ask you this right at the start. You said Eurocoin, which is that's what you IPO'd on. You said there were some challenges around that, so that's why you looked at some other opportunities. Are you doing anything at Eurocoin?
Well, we are still managing the process of getting on the ground at Eurocoin. However, in the meantime, we also have Cane Boar.
Yes. Yep.
So Cane Boar is a lot like Broad Flat Well, but bigger and closer to port.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. So Cane Boar, there was some historical exploration completed at Cane Boar decades ago, which also identified almost 30 kilometers of like meandering channel iron deposits. Okay. Now these are sitting much prouder. They're sort of like these are even bigger hills. They're bigger than what we have at Broad Flat Well. And the grades,
How far away is it from Broad Flat Well?
it's about 200 kilometers south of Broad Flat Well, but it's only about 100 kilometers from Onslow or the port of Ashford.
Okay, so that's also close.
And great news this past week, MinRes has started exporting large out of Port of Ashford. They're using a transship method to export out of Ashford, which basically demonstrates to investors, the world, that transshipping works in Western Australia. Transshipping is where you take the ore, like bulk ore, you put it into an intermediate vessel, which sails out, and then it loads into the bigger ship.
Bigger ships.
Everyone's going to go, oh, poo-poo, transshipping costs too much. It's either you transship or you have to dig up the bloody, or excuse me, dig up the beach.
Say bloody. We're allowed to say bloody.
Bloody, you dig up the beach. You know, you're basically trenching, and the time it takes to do that, and the environmental approvals to do that can be so prolonged. So it's costly and it's a time-consuming exercise. However, transshipping works. I've worked on transshipping projects on the west coast of Africa as well. It's been done on the west coast of Africa for ages as well, because west coast of Africa doesn't have any really good natural ports.
Yeah.
And which is not dissimilar from a lot of places in WA. There are only a few good natural ports, and basically they're chocker blocked.
So let me just, if I could, summarize this, and then we're going to get into, because I love you're clearly pretty excited, because if I get this right, and Fenix Resources, yes, they're paying a dividend and they're doing very well, but yours is very similar. It's a channel iron deposit, but it's closer to port. Both Broad Flat, Broad Flat Well and Cane Boar, they're both closer to port. They're both channel iron deposits, so it's simple. They're both close to sealed highways. So that's your focus at the moment, to get cash flow into the company. Am I right with that?
That's exactly right. And it's not just that. First, Broad Flat Well, get cash flow into the business. Use the cash flow of Broad Flat Well to leverage Cane Boar. Cane Boar will be a bigger project. It will definitely be a bigger project. And that is a real money maker. And then we use, and that, the Cane Boar could be 5 million tons a year for 10 years. There could be something as big as that there. There's literally kilometers of these CIDs, of these channel iron deposits. So it is a longer life it could be a longer life operation there.
But what I like about this is that if you get something earlier into production, then you've got some cash flow. It's less dilution for shareholders.
Exactly. It means that Burley is not out rattling the tin every 12 months.
Yeah.
But it means that we are giving our shareholders value, like right off the bat. I just need to reflect John Wellborn's story at Fenix. And he's like, who's doing this, folks? Who has gone from a little exploration company to paying a dividend within 6 months? Who does that? Who does that? And I was like, nobody does that. Nobody does that but Fenix and now Burley.
Okay, so okay, we're going to hold you to that. We've run out of time. We've run out of time.
That's what we want to do. That's our intent.
Okay, sum it up for me. It's Stuart. It's been fantastic to have you. Come on more regularly and give us some updates, because it sounds like you've got lots of good things happening. Give us 3 reasons why people should sit up and take notice.
Okay.
I think you've outlined them all, but summarize.
Okay, look, one, we're about to kick goals at Broad Flatwell. We're about to get a resource in process there. 2, we're going to get through the gate at Cane Bore as well, and we're going to get a resource in there by the end of the year. We are focused on doing that. 3, we have the team. We have the team in place to do that. Myself, Brian Dixon, the chairman, David Crook, our technical director, the geologist, and Jeff Brill. We've got a solid board here with decades of experience in project identification and project development. We have the team, we have the people, we have the know-how. We're going to make this happen.
And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if you could bottle his energy and his enthusiasm, I tell you what, it's all there. And I often say to you, don't I, have a look at management and have a look at what they've done before. Stuart's done this before. He's clearly got his eye on the prize. But one of the things I like about this as well is he understands that sort of shareholder value and making sure that they get into some early cash flow to allow you not to get too much dilution over the years. So looks like it's an exciting time with lots of news flow. Stuart, it's been great to have you on for the first time. Let's not make it the last time. And I look forward to lots of news updates for the rest of the year. Thanks so much for joining me on Making Money Matter.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.